My name is Joseph Rowley. I'm a student educator here at the Museum of Art. I love the work of Vik Muniz. He's a contemporary artist whose work is on display at the museum right now. Most of his works are really playful, clever, maybe unexpected in some ways. They all, for me, whether they're made of food or toys or trash, magazines, postcards, they all are an invitation to look a little longer, question my first assumptions or my hasty judgments, try to understand what's really going on and peel away the layers. This work that we're going to talk about today is from what Vic called his album series. These are works of art created from fragments of photographs, scrapbooks and family albums, something that in a lot of ways we all share. And most of the album series are experiences that most of us can relate to. Birthday party, a child on a bicycle. This work departs from that in some ways as it dives into a more serious issue. In 1944, George Stinney Jr. at 14 years old was arrested, tried, and convicted on a charge of murder. He was executed, the youngest person to have been sentenced to death in the United States in the 20th century. 70 years later, in 2014, George's case was reopened, the evidence insufficient, the conviction overturned. In 2015, just a year later, Vik Muniz created this image, a recreation of George's mugshot made out of fragments of photographs. When I first approach this work of art, often I am not quite sure where to begin, but I always am drawn to his eyes. Vik Muniz, in all of his works, invites us to look a little longer. Try to see a little deeper, to question our hasty judgments or our first assumptions. This work of art is, to me, the most powerful and the most devastating invitation. The trial was organized in a single day. An all-white jury was organized, presented with the evidence, two conflicting accounts of his confession. No questions were asked. The conviction was ruled in less than 10 minutes. After the trial, he was allowed to see his parents once. And when he was brought to the execution, he had to sit on a Bible because he was too small for the chair. Now I want you to look again at George Stinney's portrait. Look deeply into his eyes, into his face. What do you see? As the curator of this exhibition has written, Vik Muniz's work invites us to consider how what we expect to see often shapes what we do see. As we consider George Stinney Jr., what do we expect to see? I think that this is an important conversation that we need to have in our moment today. There's so much anxiety in the world. We're all dealing with a lot. It's easy to make assumptions about the people around you. It's easy to make judgments about their intentions, about their choices. It's easy to close ourselves off and to build walls between ourselves and the person we see across the room, across the subway, across the hall. What happens when we slow down? When we stop to consider what that person might be going through, how our assumptions or our expectations might be shaping what we see? What happens when we remember the humanity in everyone we meet? that our lives are made up of so many others. And that when we look, we see only a fragment. Just a tiny piece of their lives, of what they're going through, what they've been through, what their hopes and their fears are. Each of these images is just a glimpse, barely a glimpse. And we don't know who these people are, or why they're here, in what way they may or may not have been connected or ever heard the name of George Stinney Jr. What we do know, that when we pause to look a little longer, to ask important questions, to have real conversations, to be kind, we can prevent so many tragedies.